What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we're gonna shoot out the Revv Generator 120 Mark III with the Mesa Dual Rectifier Multiwatt. Let's do it. Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. Very excited to do this shootout. This is another highly requested one. The Revv Generator Mark III 120 versus the Mesa Dual Rectifier Multiwatt. Now, traditionally you guys know I'm not a huge fan of rectifiers, but whatever reason, this one has the goods. I absolutely love this thing. It sounds fantastic. So in that first shootout, I was using the Deadweald Duality DX pedal to boost both amps. They were going through the same speaker, same cab, same mic, everything. So we were on channel 3 for that very first portion. We were on channel 3 of the Revv for that very first portion with neither aggression mode on, and we were on channel 2 on the Mesa Dual Rectifier in the vintage mode, which is kind of where I really tend to like this amp. So differences right there, the way that I had them dialed in, the Revv has a lot more like low mid grunt to it and a little bit more upper mid bite, whereas the mids were rounder on the Mesa, and surprisingly the low end on the Mesa was a little bit tighter than it was on the Revv. And the Mesa was slightly drier in the gain, whereas the Revv had quite a bit of gain going on. So, I mean, I'm sure I could have dialed it up a little bit more on the Mesa to kind of match, but they were close enough for me. So we're gonna go ahead and put both amps, everything at noon, with the gain at 9 o'clock, as I usually do for these shootouts. No boosts on, and we're gonna go back and forth and kind of dial them in to see how we can get them to sound and how they compare. Real quick before I do that, if this is your first time here at my channel, what I do is I take awesome high gain amps such as these, overdrives, pickups, cabs, play through them, shoot them out, record them with a simple audio setup, and then give you guys the unprocessed audio. That way, with no post-processing and a simple one mic setup, you guys are getting the most real world examples that I could possibly provide for you. So if that's something you're into and you like high gain tones and E standard, consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out, and I'd love to see you guys for the next one. We are on the Revv. All right, so immediately the dual rectifier is a lot boxier, a little bit more hollow, needs some treble. Let's dial that presence up. See if we can match it a little bit. Okay, definitely a lot more low mids on the Revv still. Go back to the rectifier. All right, with the way that it's dialed now, the Mesa just has a more rounder midsection, which is kind of what I experienced the way I had it dialed in before on the vintage mode. We're going to turn the gains up on both to 11 o'clock. And for whatever reason, I didn't touch the volumes, but I'm getting quite a volume difference here. So I'm gonna adjust the channel volume on the Revv to compensate. Could just be the level of mids going on, but. All right, so they're not too far off. Definitely not as close as the Stealth in the Revv were. Let's dial in a little bit more treble and bump the gain up to 1 o'clock on both amps. See how that sounds. All right, so it's already pretty aggressive. Let's get some presence going on the Revv. Both sound great. They're both pretty tight the way that they're dialed in. Let's do a little bit more gain on each amp. All right, the Revv has a lot more upper mid brightness and a lot more lower mid kind of growl whereas the mids are just kind of round and boxy on the Mesa. Let's turn the mids up a little bit on the Mesa and see how that compares. But even like that, it's already fairly tight. Yeah, just the Mesa sounds a little bit more congested. Let's actually scoop some mids out. Yeah, so there are definitely some mid frequencies on the Revv that you cannot match on the Rectifier in the vintage mode. Also, the Revv has a lot more clarity to it for sure. Let's get those mids going back up on the Rectifier. Let's turn the gain down to about noon on both amps. Let's kick the boost back in. Again, this one just seems to have more like mid congestion, not as much clarity. The Revv also seems to have some big like sub-low frequencies going on. It sounds huge in the low end. Let's dial the lows up on the Mesa to kind of even it out. Now they're pretty similar, but like I said, there's an inherent difference in the mid voicing on the Revv. Also, when you push the low end on the Rectifier, it tends to get this kind of like big hollow low end going on as opposed to staying tight, and it just makes the whole amp sound a little woofy. No doubt this Revv's gonna slice through the mix, no problem at all. So I'm actually gonna go to the modern setting on the Rectifier. Wah! That's a lot louder. All right, so we're on the modern setting on channel 2 on the dual Rectifier multi-watt, and holy cow, the low end is insane. Lots of sub-lows, lots of presence. So let's turn the mids up. All right, so let's turn the mids up even more. All right, we're bringing in some depth on the Revv. All right, so the Mesa, naturally, just the mids are in a different place. Like I keep saying that over and over again. So it's probably kind of annoying, but that's the reality of what I'm hearing. The Revv just has a lot more upper mid punch and clarity. When you turn the depth up on the Revv, it actually kind of matches the low end girth of the Mesa in the modern mode pretty easily. So really, yeah, it's almost like kind of two different flavors of the same thing. The Mesa definitely has more of that high-end buzz sound. It's definitely not really fizzy like some of the older ones, like the 3 channels tended to be, but it's just got that Mesa voicing that you're used to if you have a Rectifier. All right, so that's with the boost on. Let's turn the boost off. All right, so we're gonna switch the Revv over to channel 4. So channel 4 on the Revv is meant to be more like a dual rectifier, and an Ubershaw, where it's gonna have a less tight, more massive low end and more low mid kind of focus, but it's crazy how much low mid focus channel 3 has. I don't really notice it as much until I go to another amp. right, so yeah, the Revv still just has more mid-cut. I guess I should dial them in a little bit closer. Let's dial some more treble. They actually sound really, really similar to each other now. All right, so let's actually turn the mids down a little bit because it's just got a lot more mid content than the Mesa does. Pretty similar. Let's check out the blue aggression mode on channel 4. Okay, and now the red aggression mode on channel 4. I would say that's the most similar to the actual Mesa. But again, still just more upper mid frequencies. It's rounder in the mids and it'll cut better for sure. They're about equal in the low end tightness. I would say the Revv has a little bit of like a, almost like a sag thing going on, but it's not like it's not tight. The low end on the Mesa just seems to punch a little bit more, in my opinion, so. Let's turn both gains down just a tad, and then turn the boost on. I don't know what's going on with the LED on this thing. It's being a little goofy on me. The red aggression mode on channel 4 of the Revv sounds very similar to modern on channel 2 of the Rectifier, like really similar. The Revv just has this crazy upper mid bump that I feel like is gonna cut through any mix with no problem. Whereas the Rectifier usually cuts quite well, 5150s cut really well, but it's like, man, this Revv is almost gonna sit out front of the mix unless you dial it carefully. Could be a good or a bad thing. If you're tuning low, it's gonna be a good thing. You're gonna want those upper mid frequencies to kind of sit out in the mix a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, they both sound awesome. And again, this head costs almost $1,000 more than the Mesa, but you're getting a lot of things with this head that you're not getting with the Mesa, including a built-in gate. You've got built-in 2 notes torpedo technology, so you can record silently to your DAW or your interface. You've got virtual cabs built in if you want to go to the front of the house. You've got a headphone jack. You've got Bluetooth, so if you want to play music through your speakers while you're jamming along with that, you can do that. You've got all sorts of different EQ switches. Each channel has their own aggression mode, which I guess kind of matches up with the modes on the Mesa, because the Mesa has 3 modes per high gain channel and the clean channel. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Mesas are known for having a lot of options, so I'll never take that away from them, especially you've got the tube rectifier. You've also got the different power amp settings, the bold and the spongy. There's all sorts of options on the Mesa as well, so I'm not gonna knock it, but the Revv has just a little bit more, including that built-in gate, which functions absolutely flawlessly, in my opinion. It functions so well. And then you get the 2 note stuff and the virtual cabs if you wanna do front of house. There's also a couple more options on the back. You've got MIDI capabilities, so the Revv is about $1,000 more, I think, right now. I don't know what new dual rectifiers cost. I think they're $2,400 or something like that. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. And the Revv is around $3,300, but still, you're getting a lot of amp for your money. You're getting 4 independent channels, all with their own EQs. With the Mesa, you get 3 independent channels, all with their own EQs. So, I mean, you're kind of splitting hairs over the built-in gate and the IR functionality and the built-in 2-node stuff. If that's not stuff you need, I understand. But then again, I feel like this one is capable of more different tones due to the EQ controls and everything, whereas the Mesa is capable of a lot of different tones as well, but it doesn't have quite as much range to it, it seems. But either way, they're both fantastic, extremely versatile amps. You can't go wrong with either one. So I'm gonna play one more riff and then shut up and get out of here. I hope that you guys found this helpful and enjoyable. For me, it was definitely enjoyable. Both amps sound absolutely killer. I'm gonna get a Revv on order here for sure because they're nasty. Revv has been so nice to send this to me, and I really appreciate the fact that they've let me keep this amp for like a month. Haven't even been bothering me to get it back, so great guys over there. They've been nothing but helpful. Again, really appreciate the opportunity to check this amp out and be able to make some cool demos for you guys. Again, I hope that they were helpful. If they were not, just tell me to shut up. Anyways, last riff. Let's go down to drop D. Pulling that gain back a little bit more on each amp. All right, so let's bump up a little bit more mids in the Revv. Oh, they both sound nasty. All right, that's gonna do it for me, guys. What did you think of these two amps? Which one do you prefer? What differences did you guys hear on your end that I didn't hear here in the room? I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say about this. I thought both amps were awesome. I thought both amps had their own unique properties for sure, but they also had some surprising similarities. But anyways, that was a lot of fun for me. Thanks again to the folks at Revv. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a great day. Kyle here again. We'll see you guys next time.